Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. So, from the first day that I met my future mother-in-law, we rubbed each other the wrong way. It wasn't anything I did or anything that she said. It's just that our vibes didn't match. And we knew from the first moment that it's going to be a difficult relationship. Honestly, I didn't even care because I have to spend my life with my fiance and not his mother. For all I cared, she might not even be in the picture at all. That's why the first time we met, I go through the whole meeting somehow and vow to avoid her at all costs. But sometimes avoiding isn't all that easy, especially when you're getting married and need to talk to your families. So obviously I knew at some point I had to face her. So me and my fiance decided to host a family dinner with both our parents present so everyone can get to know each other. We invited them all on a Sunday, and I mentally prepared myself to face two moms. My own mom can be very difficult at times, and to think I have to deal with my fiance's mom too was a little too much, but I did my best. So they all arrived, and from the get-go, it was a tense atmosphere. Thankfully, our dads were easygoing and easily tackled the situation and steered the conversation to a safe topic where no knives would be thrown. My fiance also got the hint and started talking about unimportant stuff. But soon, my mom, who was trying to get me alone all night, finally decided that she had to take a direct approach if she wanted to get me to talk to her. At the dinner table, she pointedly called me out and asked me what are my plans about the wedding and if I've decided on a date. Oh God, I was trying so hard to avoid the wedding talk, and her first question just brought it on. I told her we haven't decided anything, and she went on to say that I should hurry now, that I found a person who's willing to marry me. Now, I'm not such a bad person. In fact, I'm perfectly content and confident with how my life has turned out to be. I'm good looking, I have a good education, and I even have work experience that could get me to land a decent job if I wanted to work. But the thing is that I quit my last job as the lead editor in a publishing company. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to focus on researching for the setting of my book. Now, my fiance knows about my dreams and totally supports me. He didn't mind me quitting and pursuing them. But my own parents think now that I've quit my job and don't earn my own money. I'm depending on a guy that my fiance would lose interest in me. So when my mom said I should hurry up and tie the knot, that got on my nerves, and I just got up and left. I stormed off outside to the pool. A while later, my to-be mother-in-law approached me and stood with me silently. I told her if she has anything to say, she should just get it over with because we both know we can't stand each other's company and there's no point in pretending otherwise. My mother-in-law then stares at me and tells me that I should learn to respect my elders. She said I am nothing but a spoiled little brat who even barks at her own parents. She told me that she doesn't know how her son could love a worthless person like me who can't even keep a job. Now, I could have told her a lot of things right there, starting with a few choice words and how she doesn't know anything about my relationship with her son, but I chose to just silently seethe. Worthless? Seriously? Just because she was content with being a food critic all her life and didn't think of doing anything else, she expects me to stick to mainstream jobs and not follow my dreams? I decided I'll have to do something to get back at her. After a few weeks of that disastrous family dinner, I talked to my husband and told him we should take our parents separately to their favorite restaurants and properly make up for that horrible evening. He agreed while having no idea what I was thinking. We then took my parents-in-law to my mother-in-law's favorite restaurant. I had a whole plan set up. I knew my mother-in-law well, and I knew she'd never pass on an opportunity to criticize me or tell me how I'm so lucky to have her son in my life. When we settled down and gave our orders, I told my to-be father-in-law that we'd been thinking of having an autumn wedding. I'd like to have an outdoor wedding with fallen brown leaves and as our backdrop. My mother-in-law then quickly jumped in the conversation saying how that's a bad idea and she didn't expect anything better from me. I was pissed already, so it didn't take much to set me off and I went all out. I started to tell her how I don't really care about her opinion and that she can keep her opinions to herself as they hold no value for me. Boy, was she shocked. She started telling me how I have learned no manner in all my life and that her son would be better off breaking this whole thing. Then I specifically said things to egg her on, and she took the bait. Soon she fully went off her rocker, and the whole restaurant was paying attention to our shouting match. I also got everything that was bothering me out of my system. My fiance tried to calm me down, but I had a purpose in my mind, and I wasn't about to stop. My to be mother in law at that time got violent and knocked a wine glass down. The restaurant manager came running at this point, as she was a regular as well as a food critic. He knew her well. But he also had a job to do, so initially he looked to be struggling, but witnessing us damaging the property got him moving. He asked my father in law and my fiance to get us to leave the restaurant. Finally, when I got quiet for a few minutes, my mother in law also calmed down enough to realize what had happened. The manager saw us out personally and informed us that he doesn't have a choice and that we are all banned from the restaurant as it is their policy, and he can't bend the rules even for a critic. That was my goal from the start, and seeing the look on mother-in-law's face after she realized what just happened was the most satisfying thing. She was so pissed off at that point that she couldn't even string up sentences together to express herself. She just left seething in rage, and I finally left with my fiancé. He was also very angry with me for going out of control, but I know him and he'll calm down soon. I know you all are going to think that I'm an a-hole and that I took it too far, but I swear to you, God, you don't know my mother-in-law. Merely telling the incident isn't the same as listening to her tone or suffering under her critical gaze. I'm not this kind of person normally, but as this concerned my whole life, I had to make a stand before things got worse. Just try to put yourself in my shoes and then tell me, do you really think I'm the real a-hole here? Should I have just left the matter alone and suffered even after getting married? I mean, it's not like I can ask my husband to cut all ties with her. Would you have done things differently in my place? My wedding is in 2 weeks. Most of the preparation is done, but last night my fiance asked me to do something for him, and if I can sincerely do it, he said he'll be really thankful. He asked me to make up with his mother, as we both are really important women in his life, and he doesn't want to be split between us all his life. His request wasn't unreasonable, so I told him I'll think about it. After a lot of thought, I've decided that I should really talk to my mother-in-law, as it'll just make a lot of things easier and save a lot of my energy. I'm going to meet her this evening, so I'll update here once we talk. Honestly, I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I didn't want to believe people can change, or maybe I wanted to always justify my past actions. Either way, I was fully prepared for another meeting that was going to end in disaster, but my mother-in-law and her actions fully surprised me. We went to an evening cafe and ordered our drinks. I started the conversation by being upfront and straight with her. I told her that if it was up to me, I'd never meet her on my own volition. But as my life is soon going to be connected with her son permanently, and that means she'll be a part of it, I needed to do this. I told her that my fiancé was the one to wish that we make up, but upon thinking, I also think it's wise for us to accept each other the way we are, and the fact that we'd never see eye to eye on many things. But it's also a wise move if we can put everything aside and find a way to be in the same room without it ending in a fighting match. I didn't expect her to agree with me. I was more or less expecting her to say something along the lines of how she would never accept such a worthless person like me in her life. So when she said that she also thinks the same and is willing to work with me for the sake of her son, I was completely shocked. And then I realized something else. This person right there is not just my mother-in-law. She's someone's mom. She also has emotions, and she doesn't just trample on every little bug. Maybe that is what made it a little easier for me to talk to her. She's human, and it's fine for her to have her own opinions. We finally came to an agreement to try our best to give each other freedom of being a different spirit than ourselves, and we keep our distance in matters that don't directly affect us. I promise her that I'll spend the holidays with her and maybe even call her sometimes. We finally were able to have our first chat without it ending in a screaming match. Hopefully, things don't get worse for the sake of the person we both love. We can be humane to each other. YTA. Oh my God, what kind of person publicly humiliates their whole family just for the sake of petty revenge? You didn't only get her banned, you ruined her reputation at her workplace, considering how she's a food critic. EAH. So just because your to-be mother-in-law was being an a-hole, you decided to be an even bigger one? Is that how people solve problems nowadays? And you didn't only took revenge on her, you also dragged your fiancé and your father-in-law in it. You seriously lack some judgment. I'm Chinese, and no one in my family uses deodorant. We shower every day and use soap, but we don't use deodorant, and I don't really sweat either except when doing intense exercise. I didn't find it was weird until in high school when people put on deodorant in locker rooms and I was confused and asked them what it was. I'd never had anyone complain about my body odor, but I accidentally told someone I didn't use deodorant because I didn't think it was a big deal. And they told me it was gross and that I stink, and I got bullied for it. Kept my mouth shut after that and wore deodorant so I wouldn't seem weird. Around my early 20s, I stopped wearing deodorant again, and no one noticed, including my very opinionated roommates. I was really confused because neither I or anyone in my family smelled of anything, and I did some research and realized a lot of East Asians lack a certain gene that produces body odor. I was shocked that that was a thing and began asking BFs at the time to smell my armpit. Weird, I know. And they confirmed I have no smell. I started dating my current boyfriend for a year and asked him casually over dinner if I smelled. He said no, and I told him about me not using deodorant, and he freaked out, saying it was disgusting and that it's rude not to wear deodorant. I was surprised because he literally said I didn't smell and told him about the research showing gene differences for Asians, and he shrugged it off, saying everyone is the same, the no smelling lack of a gene is fake, and refused to look when I sent him studies showing it was real. He went out a few days later and bought me a deodorant and forced me to wear it, making sure to watch me do it. I decided to take the deodorant out of the tube as an experiment and applied an empty tub while he was watching to see if he really noticed a difference if I smelled. After a week, I asked him how I smelled, and he said, "Great." And I revealed to him I had been applying an empty deodorant stick, and he got really angry and accused me of lying and tricking him. To me, if he can't tell the difference between deodorant and no deodorant, we literally had sex, then it shouldn't matter to him. But he called me disgusting, and we got into a big fight over it. NTA, but it's a good thing this has happened because your boyfriend has shown his true colors as a controlling a-hole. Forcing you to apply deodorant while he watches to make sure you've done so is very WTF. You should break up with him. NTA can confirm my wife is from East Asia and she never has needed deodorant. In fact, she doesn't really sweat at all. Also, in her home country, deodorant is kind of a pain to find. What they have is super small and no odor. Really, only antiperspirant. The smell most people have is that of their fabric softener. That said, not everyone in East Asia has this genetic thing, but also deodorant use isn't really a thing in the culture, so there are some people you may sit near on the train who really should use some deodorant, but don't. My husband is an antiques collector. He's also a massive technophobe, as in doesn't even have a smartphone, which isn't a good thing when a lot of business is done via websites and eBay nowadays. Luckily, I'm not a technophobe and have been willing to help him out. I'm talking him literally waking me up at 5:30 a.m. because he has found something really good on a website before his work shift. And as he has no clue how to use PayPal, I have to do it for him. I literally drop everything to help him buy his stuff, even at work sometimes. And yes, he has made a profit with stuff he's bought and sold. Until now, I have done so gladly. I don't collect antiques. I do, however, collect vintage toys. We aren't talking huge money, and it's a personal thing. I don't buy to sell on. I buy as I like them. My husband thinks it's cute. Anyway, on to today. A local secondhand shop had some toys that would be perfect for my collection. The problem is my job started at 9. I had to leave at 8:45 and the shop opens at 9:30. However, my husband was due to start work at 11:30. So I asked him to please pick the toys up for me. And he said fine. So I left him the money and went to work. When I finished, I came home, not to the toys, but to a note saying that he had decided to go into work early. Not because he'd been asked, he just decided to do it. So he went in for 9:30 and didn't pick up the toys. His reasoning was that he was sure they'd be there when I finished at 4. They weren't. They had sold that lunchtime. I was pissed. So when he finished work, I asked him why he didn't do as he said he would. And his reply was that he didn't see why the toys would be popular and figured I'd be able to pick them up later. Despite me saying those toys were getting harder to come by and the price was very reasonable. I was really excited by the find, and he knew that. The shop is literally round the corner from our house, by the way, and it's literally a few minutes' walk from his work, whereas mine is a 15-minute drive each way. He then said my collection is silly, whereas his isn't, and I should Get over it. And he makes more from his hobby. He also works longer hours than me, though the reason for that is I had to cut down on work due to disability. I used to earn more than him until around 4 years ago. It also took a while to get my money back from him. So I told him from now on, he can figure out eBay and PayPal and websites on his own, and I was done helping him, as the one thing he said he would help me, he went back on. He's now saying I'm being petty, as his hobby is worth more than mine. AITA? NTA sounds like weaponized incompetence to me. He's an adult. He can figure out those sites on his own if his hobby is supposedly that important. And maybe it's petty, but I would have done the same thing. If he is not willing to help you with minimal time commitment, you already paid him, etc., then why should you have to help him? Sounds like he doesn't value you or your hobbies at all. NTA, relationships are give and take, and if not for you, he wouldn't have his eBay shop. You gave him the money, not demanded he spend his money on you. Then he withheld returning your money to you. eBaying things can take hours to do. You asked him for mere minutes of his time in comparison. He just didn't wanna, and that's not a good reason whatsoever. He broke your trust. NTA, he doesn't value you, your help, or your stuff. You are perfectly within reason to force him to grow